Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen. The least beloved film in the already controversial Bayformers franchise. This film had the infamous reputation for being produced without a script, due to forces beyond anyone's control, even Bay's. Because of this mishap, one would assume there is no consistency at all to be found within this movie. Surprisingly, I would beg to differ. Most movies have a clear and present theme throughout them. Revenge of the Fallen is no different. At first glance, one would believe that the main theme of this movie is something like fulfilling your destiny or never giving up on the greater good, and I would agree myself. But upon further inspection, I realized that it was something else.
How is that possible?
Some films can subliminally drill a theme or an idea deep into your subconscious without you even realizing. Various offhanded things that seem like they're pointless but are part of a much greater narrative. One day I was thinking about some of the more infamous parts of this film when it dawned upon me. The main theme of this movie is sex. At first, it seemed ridiculous, like just a few offhanded gags or moments without connection, until I began to see that it was far too consistent to be something insignificant. The theme of sex is a recurring and subliminal one throughout the film as a whole. We are shown immature jokes like Sam's dogs mating, Michaela landing on Leon's groin, and unusual banter between the characters.
Listen, okay? Don't be sucking the sack, bro.
Bay gives us plenty of ass shots, Megan Fox or not. We also see Simmons' somewhat creepy affection towards Michaela.
Know nothing, all cause of you and your little criminal girlfriend. Look at her now, so mature.
There are even less on-the-nose examples, like how Soundwave defiles government satellites with his glowing tentacles, like something out of a hentai, or the way he deploys Ravage almost looks like giving birth. The Combinders, Reedman, and Devastator could possibly symbolize an orgy, as they are made from many robots coming together as one. There's also whatever the hell this scene is supposed to be. Romance is a key part too, as Sam's parents flirt often during the start of the movie, and it is alluded to that a college professor is having a love affair with one of his students.
Finish that for me.
The most significant relationship is the blooming romance between Sam and Michaela. In the first movie, Sam is clearly attracted to her physically, but here we see they're trying to gain a more platonic part of it, with Michaela constantly trying to get Sam to say the phrase "I love you," making their bond official. All of this is done not just to convey a theme, but to build up to the idea that the movie is trying to put into our minds. That the Transformers actually have biological sexes and can reproduce sexually, much like us. At the start of the movie, Optimus Prime says the line,
The human race. A species much like our own.
This line extends past the compassion and violence mankind often portrays, meaning it can also imply something more intimate. Even the first movie had planted the seeds for this theme, as Optimus Prime refers to his species as
Autonomous robotic organisms.
implying that these alien robots are more than just mere machines. The character Maggie Madison even goes as far as to call them DNA-based computers. Throughout the whole franchise, the Transformers are shown having many aspects found within living things, even beyond sex. Such as bleeding, spitting, urinating, breathing, farting, roaring, and even crying, among many other things. These are not just pieces of technology, but living things. This movie cited the first appearance of female Transformers in the live-action film series. Arcee was originally planned to appear as a character in the first movie, but didn't make the cut, as the writers were unsure of how to explain the purpose of female robots. But in Revenge of the Fallen, all of that has changed. Now, there is a functional purpose for female robots to exist. In several instances, Transformers are even shown to have actual genitalia. In a scene where the Allspark causes kitchen appliances to mutate into small robots, one of them has a rather suggestively placed cannon. Later, the Decepticon Mixmaster is shown to also have a somewhat phallic-looking gun, though one could argue that it may actually be part of his back. This shows another fascinating trait in these aliens, is that their genitals are not only used for reproductive purposes, but also evolved as weapons, much like the stinger in wasps being formed from the ovipositor. The most famous example has to be the enemy scrotum observed on Devastator, and I think we all know the purpose of those organs. Though genitals on the female Transformers are never shown, one can assume that they're there nonetheless. We also see the first stage of the Cybertronian life cycle. On a crashed Decepticon ship, we see large clutches of blue eggs housing small Transformer hatchlings. The babies come out in an altricial larval stage of sorts, having a short tail in place of hind limbs, and making small chirps rather than speaking. When Megatron enters the alien nesting site, Starscream tells that he's been helping
spawn a new army.
Whether these eggs are his offspring or he's simply choosing which Decepticons get to breed is not elaborated. Another key aspect for proof of Transformer reproduction is the mention of family, not through adoption but actual genetic relationships. Some Autobots have actual siblings like Arcee and Skids. The Fallen even calls the Primes his brothers. There are even references to older generations, like Jetfire mentions his mom and dad a few times, and the 13 Primes are described as being Optimus's biological ancestors. The Transformer libido is taken a step further, as we see a sort of forbidden desire to have intercourse with human beings. The small Cybertronian Wheelie is attracted to Michaela, constantly talking about her hotness and thrusting upon her leg to show his loyalty. The Decepticon spy, Alice, functions like a Greek siren, seducing Sam to exploit him and obtain the cube's secrets. An interspecies attraction is quite surprising considering one's flesh and the other metal, but it can show how the Transformers view themselves as live organisms. This human-on-robot action has even appeared in other incarnations of the franchise as well. Most surprisingly, this idea has came back in the franchise's many sequels, arguably even becoming a defining plot point or theme for some characters. The Hatchlings have a cameo in Dark of the Moon, and the Dinobots have kids of their own in The Last Knight. Hound also mentions having a bad relationship with his father. The most interesting example of this, however, was in Age of Extinction, for offering an objection to this concept. The film's antagonist is Lockdown, a bounty hunter claiming to work for the creators of the Transformers race. He laughs at Optimus's idea of he and the rest of his species being born like humans, instead claiming that they are built by a superior species. Though this makes no sense since we are given clear evidence to the contrary before and after the events of this movie. This leads to the only logical point that these so-called creators are actually false gods. Spreading the lie that they don't procreate like the other species is a way of tricking them into thinking that they are inferior and deserve to be treated as such. There's a reason why the Knights call Quintessa
The Great Deceiver!
Creating propaganda to trick a community into thinking it's naturally inferior is a trick used by authoritarian oppressors to make their greed and ruling seem logical and to snuff out any ideas of rebellion. The concept that Cybertronians can bear children is a way of showing that they are living people with their own rights, and not just tools or technology for someone else to use. In Dark of the Moon, Sentinel Prime is shown to take great offense when humans describe his species as mere machines, as it portrays their kind as non-living and without souls or emotions. Lovemaking and reproduction is not just a part of nature for the Transformers. It symbolizes hope, freedom, pleasure, and many more emotions. Things that the Autobots are constantly fighting for across the galaxy. They are more than just mere machines. That just like us, life, and a crappy blockbuster, there is more than meets the eye. Flesh or metal, all of us were born and conceived by someone, and the one thing most intertwined with sex is love.